What's up, guys? So today we're gonna come back with a new problem to solve here. We're gonna solve this two-sum problem, and so let's just go ahead and read this. And our first goal is going to be to write down in English what they're asking us to do. So, given an array of integers, return indices of the two numbers such that they add up to a specific target. Okay, so in English, to me that means I'm going to find I and j so that nums I plus nums j equals target. And nums is going to be a array of integers like this. So that's the first condition we need to satisfy. All right, next, you may assume that each input would have exactly one solution. Okay, so what does that mean? That means, so let's try and think of like the opposite in order to get a better idea of what that means. So what does nums have to look like for there to be more than one solution? So let's say nums equals, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 2, and target equals, let's say 3. So the question is, do we have more than one solution with this, with nums here? So we do, right? So our target is 3. So this one plus this one equals 3, but this one and also the last element equal 3. So this is an example of more than one solution. So we're not going to have an array like this. So that means that we might have something like this, because now there's only one way to get the number 3. So that's what that means to me. So okay, and moving on. So let's go ahead and keep that example of what we're not going to see. So exactly one solution. We will not see nums like this. Okay. Because 0, 1 and 0, 0, 1. Okay, so in Python, indexing starts at 0, so the index of 1 is 0, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, 0, 3. So 0, 1 and 0, 3 are solutions. And we're only going to get exactly one solution. So this is an example of what we will not see. Okay, moving on. And you may not use the same element twice. So that means to me, so our first condition is find I and j so that nums I plus nums j equals target. So this to me means that I cannot equal j. So let's think of an example. So let's think of an example of when that's not the case, so we get a better idea of this. So let's see, nums equals, let's say 1 and 1, 2, 3. Target equals, let's say 2. So if we get the solution, 0, 0, so 1 plus 1 equals 2, but in this case we're returning the same index twice, and so that would fail. Oh, what's going on? Okay, and so that would fail this condition, so I cannot equal j, and so we cannot have this is an example of what we will not see, right? So we need to make sure that we're not returning something like 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, so on. Okay, so let's go ahead and spec out both our test and also our, so let's minimize this, let's maximize this. Okay, so def test to sum, okay, and def to sum. And to sum, we're going to give it 2 arguments. We're going to give it a nums array and a target integer. And so now let's think of some test cases, some things that we want to assert are true about our function. So let's think about this. We want to assert, okay, 2 sums, no, 2 sum. What do we want to assert 2 sum is equal to? So let's start off with something simple. So let's say, all right, let's start off with this first condition. So 1, 2, 3. If our target is 0, then we should return an empty array. So how can we do that? Well, let's just return an empty array. Well, first, okay, so I forgot one step. So we have to make sure that our test fails first. So let's just say 1, 2, 3. So our goal is to just see that the test is failing. All right, that's right. So in Python, we need to call our function in order to make it run. So this line here tells the program to jump up to test 2 sum, which evaluates 2 sum with this as the nums array and this is the target, then compares it to the empty array. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, and so we're seeing an assertion error, and that's good. We want to see that. That's our first step in test-driven development, is seeing a failing test. So our second step in test-driven development is to write just enough code in order to make the test pass. So how can we make 2 sum? How can we make this test pass? Well, we can just return the empty array. Simple, but effective. So let's see. Let's make sure. Okay, so we passed our test. And so now let's think of some more interesting examples. So what about what if we want to return 1? Okay, this should also equal an empty array because none of these pairs sum to 1. Like 1 plus 2 is 3, 1 plus 3 is 4. Yeah, so on and so forth. 2 plus 3 is 5. So none of these is summing to 1. So this should also equal an empty array. So let's just make sure. Okay, and so our tests are still passing. So let's add another one. Okay, so what about 2? This is also not interesting, but let's just confirm. Okay, and 3. If our target is 3, so just looking at the array, you can see right away 1 plus 2 is going to be equal to 3. So we want to make sure that it's returning the coordinates for these 2 items. So remember, in Python we go by 0 indexing. So the index of 1 here is 0, and the index of 2 is 1. So this is what we want to return when we call 2 sum with these 2 arguments. So let's see what happens to our test. Okay, so we've got a failing test, and now we need to write just enough code in order to make all of our tests pass. Okay, so let's think about this. Okay, so let's think about what we're doing in English and then try and translate that to code. So we're starting off with each element. We're summing it with we start with 1. Then we find the sum of 1 with all of the elements in the array. So 1 plus 1 is 2, 1 plus 2 is 3, 1 plus 3 is 4, and we move on to the next one. So we move to 2, 2 plus 1 is 3, 2 plus 2 is 4, 2 plus 3 is 5, and so on and so forth. And so we want to stop when we hit 1 plus 2 equals 3, we want to return the indexes of those two values that sum up to our target. So I just want to see all these sums being printed out to the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and write another function in order to just see the sums. So let's print pair sums. And so the goal of this one is going to be to just it's going to take an array, and our goal with this is we want to go through just like we did when we just look at it. We want to print out and see what those sums are with those values. So let's see. So thinking about this, so we want to loop over the elements of each array. So for index 1 in range, and we're going to loop over, we want the index to go from 0 to the length of the array minus 1. And let me convince you why. So this has 3 elements, right? But the last element is 2, is the length of the array minus 1. And so we want range to go from len of array. So what this will do is it will make index 1 equal to 0, 1, all the way up to array length of the array minus 1. It will not equal length of the array. And let's just see. Let's just print index 1 and see what we're getting here. So we're gonna. Oops. Okay. So we're gonna just call print pair sums. Let's call it with 1, 2, 3. Let's just comment this out. Let's just run this. Okay, so we're seeing these are the values that index 1 is taking. Okay, so now let's print the array values. What is the value of the array at these indexes? So let's print that. And we're getting 1, 2, 3, which makes sense. And so now our goal is to take these the values of the array, and we want to get sums of all the pairs. So let's go back to what we were doing in English. So for 1, in English, we want to sum 1 with all of the values in the index. So we're going to loop over the same array again. So we're just going to copy and paste this. Okay, and we're just going to call this index 2. We're going to loop over the same thing. And so now for each of these, what do we want to do? Okay, let's just print. Let's print the pairs of indices and see what those look like. So print index 1, comma, index 2. All right, let's just print those and let's see what happens. Okay, so we see that we're getting. We're gonna look at 0, 0. So that's 1, 1 and 1, 0, 1, 0 and 1. So 1 and 2, 0 and 2. So 1 and 3, 1 and 0. So 2 and 1. So it's just going through and looking at all the different permutations of the elements of the array. So now let's look at the actual values and not their index. So let's look at the values now. Array, and this is how we call a specific value of an array. We give it the index. So let's just see what that looks like. Okay, so we're looking at the value 1 and the value 1, 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 2 and 1, 2 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 1, so on and so forth. Okay, so now what we really want to do is we want to see the sums. So let's print let's print all the sums that we're going to be seeing. So let's just add these together. Let's change. Okay, so we're going to see sums of, so 1 plus 1 is 2, 1 plus 2 is 3, 1 plus 3 is 4, 2 plus 1 is 3, 2 plus 2 is 4, 2 plus 3 is 5, 3 plus 1 is 4, and so on and so forth. And so we're seeing here all the sums. And so now what we do is we want to compare this sum that we're getting here, we want to compare it to our target. And so when we get a sum of 3, we just want to return the indexes that produce that sum, right? So when I equals 0 and I equals 1, we're getting our target 3. So we want to return 0 and 1. So let's see how we can do that here. So, okay. Alright. Let's see how we can implement the same thing. So let's just copy and paste. Copy. Paste. And we're going to call this nums. Okay, so for these things, if the sum so what do we want to do in English? If the sum is equal to the target, give us back those two indexes. Okay, so this is an attempt. Let's see if this passes our test. All right, so let's comment out this print function and let's run our test again, and let's see if this passes. Okay, so we have an assertion error. So so this one is failing. So let's think about what happens here when nums is this and when target is 2. Okay. So let's think about it. So we're looping over this. So 1 plus 1 is 2. Okay, so right away. So we start off here, 1 plus 1, and it's returning 0, 0, which is not an empty string. And that violates this condition that we had. I cannot equal j. Okay, let's just confirm that that's what we're getting, that we're getting 0, 0 currently. And so we can confirm that by saying, by just printing out, by giving toSum these values and just seeing what it returns us. So let's go ahead and just print this value. Okay. And so let's see what happens here. Okay, so we can see that when we have this condition here, it's returning 0, 0, which does not equal the empty array. And so that's why our assertion is failing. So now we see the problem. And now let's think about how can we solve this and make sure that, so in this case, we want it to run through this whole iteration here. So it's going to do it's going to do 9 different comparisons, and we want it to not enter this. We don't want it to enter this for all 9 of those, and so instead we want it to return this here. So okay, when index 1 is 0 and when index 2 is 0, let's see what happens. So nums index 1 is 1, nums index 2 is also 1, that equals 2, which equals the target, which is 2. So this returns true, and we're returning 0, 0. And so our final condition here, so we want index 1 to be different from index 2, and we can express that by saying index 1 does not equal index 2. and we want to say and. Okay. And so let's see if that passes our test. Okay. Test 2 sum. Run our tests. Okay, and now it's passing. So we see that we have we're passing all of our tests here. Now let's think about if there's maybe another interesting sample value we can give it to make sure, like maybe we're not looking, there may be a test out there that would fail if we gave it to our test function. So let's think about that for a second. And let's check the value that they gave and make sure that this works, obviously. So let's see here. Copy, paste, and we want to paste. We want 2, 7, 11, 15. 2, 7, 11, 15. Target of 9. We want it to return. We want it to return 0, 1, because 2 and 7 equal 9, and the indexes are 0 and 1. So let's go ahead and minimize this again, open this back up. So this is the test condition that they gave us in the problem definition, and so let's just make sure that is also working. Okay, and there you have it. So that's another example of test-driven development with Python. And so this example, so we're looping through, so for an array with 3 elements, we're doing 9 comparisons. And so that's the length of the array squared. So if we give this array, if we give TwoSum a 1,000,000 row array, it's going to have to do 1,000,000 squared comparisons. So while the arrays are small, like this function is going to work fine. It's not going to take a long time to run, but when we start giving it bigger values, this function is going to start running pretty slow. So we call this the brute force solution. So this is checking every single sum, every single permutation of values within the array and comparing it to the target. And so there's a better solution that we could come up with, but we'll leave that for another video. So go ahead and like the video, subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Alright guys, I'll see you later.